Hello friends, today I join you in 10-year-old flower hamung girl swag for everything you ever needed or wanted to know about traveling in Sapa, Vietnam.
As with all of my longer videos, I have linked timestamps in the description box below, so you can click on those to fast forward to your area of interest.
So perhaps the most important part of this video, what to do. Why do people come to Sapa? What can you do here? The best thing to do in Sapa, hands down, is trekking plus homestay. This is the best way to meet people from the local ethnic minority tribes, see a lot of their very beautiful, very unique ethnic costumes, learn a little bit about their culture and how they live. The treks are generally you hiking up and down the mountains, village to village, on little footpaths that they've developed over the years, which, by the way, are treacherous and require a degree of athleticism I did not expect. At night, you stay in a homestay that truly is an extension of their family home. You will be eating in their living room and their kitchen. Their children and grandchildren will be there. Their indigo and laundry will be drying on the fence, and they will cook you what they always eat. So it's an extremely authentic experience. Also, most of the homestays are really proud of their level of hospitality, so they will serve you happy water, aka bathtub rice wine, until you fall over. They will invite a local guy to play a local flute until you are ready to go to sleep. And also in these treks, you tend to meet other travelers, which is a great opportunity to talk about where people have been and where people are going. I really like that I meet travelers of all different ages. These treks slash homestays, you can't really arrange on your own, and I don't recommend arranging after you already get to Sapa. You'll pay a lower price and probably get a higher quality tour if you arrange it while you're still in Hanoi. There's a lot of chatter about ethical tour companies, social enterprise companies. There's several of them in Sapa. There's Sapa Ochao and Sapa Sisters, both of which are owned by Hmong women. There's Ethos, which seems to be owned by a Vietnamese woman and an Irish guy. And finally, there is Yesti, which I'm not as familiar with. These companies promise more personalized, more authentic tours that give more money to the tribes people that do the work. And I hate to say it, I'm very sorry, that hasn't been my personal experience. I've done tours with some of the ethical companies, and I've done tours with some of the old school, old quarter Hanoi outfits, and my impression is that the quality of the tours varies, having nothing to do with the ownership of the company, and that the tribespeople doing the work get paid the same amount regardless of which company they work for. So I'm not trying to call out quote unquote ethical companies. I'm just saying, in my personal experience, my $75 3-day, 2-night trackless homestay with Lily's travel agency in Hanoi was more authentic, higher quality, and the guides were happier and more interactive than my $95 4-hour tour with Sapa Ochao. The owner of Ethos didn't even email me back when I was inquiring about going on a food tour that's supposedly offered daily. I obviously admire the intention behind social enterprise tourism, but if you want a reliable experience, I would say go with an old quarter Hanoi outfit. They're not starving the people here who are doing this. One thing I would say to look out for and inquire about specifically before you choose your tour though is, are you more interested in the athletic component of hiking around to lots of villages, seeing waterfalls, seeing caves, or are you more interested in the cultural component? Do you want to see people do batik? Do you want a cooking lesson? Do you want to go to a local market? Or do you really just want to exercise and see wildlife? Most of the tours promise both but deliver one or the other, so inquire specifically about what you're interested in before you buy your tour. The final thing I wanted to say about treks and tours is if you decide you want a different level of transport or you want to stay extra time, tell them what you want. If you want to stay longer than the length of your trek and you plan on arranging your own return transport, ask for a little bit of a discount. Related to trekking, hiking, and such, climbing Fansipan Mountain is a very popular activity for people visiting Sapa. Fansipan Mountain is the highest mountain in Indochina. It's a little bit higher than 3,100 meters, making it, I think, a third the height of Everest, something like that. At any rate, there are two ways to do it. You can actually really climb Fansipan Mountain. Most people it takes 2 days, some people it takes longer than that. You can also do it the completely lazy way and take a funicular train from Sapa to the base of the mountain, and then a scenic cable car from the base of the mountain to the sort of base camp of the mountain, where there are several Buddhist temples, restaurants, stores to buy scarves and gloves, etc. And from that base camp, you can take another cable car halfway up the peak, and I believe a third cable car all the way up to the literal top. So when I was there, I took the funicular train to the base. I took the cable car to the base camp. I walked the steps and I visited the Buddhist temples along the way. And while that was not technically difficult, athletically, it was actually very, very hard. The peak is a lot farther away than it looks from the bottom, and it is very, very cold. Now, admittedly, I did this in the beginning of December, but I had no idea. You see what I'm wearing down here with the windows open? No, up there it is long underwear, down parka, gloves, hat, wool socks. It is cold. Along the way, I encountered a group of friendly Australians who made the same mistake. We really saw each other as being completely ridiculous Westerners who value climbing the mountain, but also don't do enough to prepare for something we consider an easy climb. Yeah. If you want to do the lazy route, I still think it's a valuable experience. It's obviously very beautiful up there. I saw a lot of Instagram girls going cable car all the way, stripping off their parkas at the peak, posing, little earmuff pose for 10 minutes and then bouncing. If that's something of interest to you, it's entirely possible. Let's see. I think it costs $30-ish. The various restaurants are terribly overpriced. A hot chocolate is going to cost you $8, and the cable cars also are going to cost you $6-10 each. I've been on a bunch of cable cars in the Alps, etc., and the cable car ride up and down Fansipan Mountain is really beautiful. And in that perfect segue from athletic endeavor to Instagram life, behind me right now, Cat Village is another very popular activity in Sapa. That's where you buy things like what I'm wearing now. It's very popular among Vietnamese tourists, not really Western tourists. There's a big debate in Sapa about which is worse, kin washing, which is the ethnic majority that Westerners think of as Viet people, quickly building Sapa, an already scenic, lovely place, into a life-size caricature of itself Instagram set, versus enforced primitivism, which is something that Westerners like me unintentionally perpetuate by valuing authenticity so much that sometimes we cross the line into poverty porn, patronizing people and businesses that look the most old-fashioned and pathetic. Perhaps that's keeping them from doing better, being better, feeling better, living better. At any rate, back to the point. Cat Village, where I am right now, it's a contrived village where Hill Tribe people have been somewhat subsidized to open little businesses selling their handicrafts, and Viet people or kin people have endless stalls of tourist trash and local fast food. I don't know why I sound so bitter about this. It's very, very pretty, and dare I suggest it, even fun if you've had a couple beers and just want to walk around toasted and buy crazy hats. Maybe I'm just jealous I don't have an Instagram husband. But yeah, Cat Village. If you want to look like these Instagram queens, worth stopping by. The final little thing that I think is really worth doing while you're in Sapa is visiting the Sapa Museum. It's a very small museum, and upstairs they have just the basics about the very local tribes, their calendar of holidays, how they celebrate weddings and funerals, and their traditional garb. It really focuses locally. Even if you've already been to the Women's Museum or the Anthropology Museum in Hanoi, and some of the information is repeated, it's a great place to go before you go on your your trek to the villages to know what you're looking at, to know who you're looking at, to know why they're wearing what they're wearing, what their customs are. Incidentally, I think it's also essential to go to the Sapa Museum if you plan on buying anything here, just because it's a museum, you're looking at the legit vintage stuff that educates your eye if you plan on going to the markets. So when you pull out your wallet, you'll know if you're buying something real or if you're buying China-produced tourist stuff. Another activity that's written about a lot that I just personally found anticlimactic is the Saturday night love market. For hundreds of years, villagers would walk into Sapa town on Saturday night, maybe once a month, to not only be ready to do business at the market on Sunday morning, but also to check the scene for potential spouses that they wouldn't come across in their own village. But it's also not super astonishing just because at this point, Sapa has developed to the point where there are people from lots of different tribes doing business here anyway. You're going to see a lot of ethnic minorities in their traditional clothing. You're going to be able to buy handicrafts from all over Northwest and Northeast Vietnam any day of the week anyway. So if you're free on a Saturday night, okay. If you're not, it's also okay. You didn't really miss out. The next thing I am excited to touch on is what to eat in Sapa. So at the homestay, you are going to get a basic fresh menu. Because you're a Westerner, they will butcher a pig and a chicken for you, which for me is horrifying, but you can't get any more real than that. They've got roosters and piglets in the yard. They're not going to the supermarket. Obviously, we're surrounded by 500-year-old rice terraces. Every single meal will be white rice based. The rice harvest here is only once a year. Once the rice has been harvested, they are growing green beans, spinach, cabbage, a million kinds of potatoes that we don't have in the West, and tomatoes, and that is what you will be eating with your rice. Tofu is popular here. Nem, which is what we would call spring rolls, are very popular throughout Vietnam and also here. Same thing with shrimp paste flavoring, extremely popular here. I haven't eaten them, but a very exotic local food is fried crickets. And if you're a vegetarian, if you're eating something fried, it is fried in lard. They'll tell you it's vegetarian, it is not. Sorry, they're not spending their money on vegetable oil. Just know before you go. In terms of seafood, catfish is very popular here, as is eel congee. But that's the kind of thing you have to go to the Sapa wet market to get. It's not something you'll see in homestays. Homestays are going to be chicken, pork, rice, potatoes, beans if you get lucky. $1 and $2 beers are extremely popular here, bia hoi. But one thing they drink a lot of here is homemade rice wine. One of the homestays I was at, she actually showed us how they made rice wine. The whole process was happening in a shed, from drying the rice to fermenting the liquor. They call it happy water. That is the alcoholic beverage of choice here. For those of you who want to eat the exotic foods but require a bit more hand-holding, there are two restaurants in town that are owned and run by local tribes people. One is a red Zhao restaurant, the other is a black Hmong restaurant. You can go there and order their most obscure dishes, and they'll explain to you exactly what you're eating, how they eat it, why they eat it. It's a great foodie experience. If you're just wandering around and want something quick, one great thing about Sapa is that all of the fast food here is fresh and healthy. So on the street outside pretty much every restaurant, you can get grilled corn, grilled sweet potatoes, a variety of grilled vegetables, grilled fish, rotisserie chicken, pig on a spit, roasted chestnuts. If you're on the keto diet, all you need to do is spend about $5 at any fast food place and you'll have delicious food every day. If you are somehow sick of fresh and local, the only real Western cuisine here is French. It's a holdover from Indochina colonization times, and the two best French restaurants in town are Le Gecko, which actually has 3 branches in this tiny town, if you can believe it, and 1991. Both are half owned by actual Frenchmen. Croque Monsieur's, Boeuf Bourguignon, simple, authentic, classic renditions of very old school French fare. So I do recommend those restaurants. Another thing that I want to emphasize food-wise is that it is worth stopping into a convenience store and stocking up. In Sapa, as in the rest of Vietnam, the water is not potable. You need to drink bottled water, so you should buy a bunch of it. Also, sometimes in these rustic, family-owned hotels, they may not be up when you want to eat breakfast. They may not be up when you want to eat dinner. There's probably no room service. I haven't met a single hotel with room service yet, so it's a good idea to have a snack waiting in your room. Last but not least, or maybe least, depending on your personality, shopping. A lot of people who come here are so struck by the beauty and originality of the ethnic costumes, they want to buy a little something something while they're here. If you are looking for housewares, antiques, or you're just willing to pay top dollar for top quality, the best place to shop in town is actually the gift shop at the Sapa Museum. They just have the largest variety and the best of everything. If you don't plan on spending more than a couple hours total, if that, shopping in Sapa, in Phuket Village, they truly have everything from the super costumey to the very authentic. So you're paying a premium, but it's a good place to go. Better really than the indoor market or walking up and down the streets in Sapa town. If you're looking for something less costumey, but just a little something something, I recommend that you just buy from the ladies on the street. These ladies are poor. They walk hours from their villages in the hills to Sapa Town Square to try to sell something to Westerners. Their methods aren't cute. They trail you, they stalk you, they harangue you, and weirdest of all, they guilt you. Like if you buy something from one of them, the rest of them try to make you feel guilty about that, like you owe it to each of them to buy one thing from each of them. However, I still think it's really important if you're just going to buy one piece of jewelry or one scarf to buy from these ladies because they are at the bottom of the economic food chain and it's a direct deal. You are directly benefiting them. There is no middleman. You're feeding their family. If you're interested in vintage and antique ethnic textiles, there's really only one lady in Sapa worth buying from. She is a Red Zhao woman. She, her mother, and her daughter all sell together in an upstairs corner of the Sapa indoor market. This is the same market that has the raw meat and the crazy snacks outside. When you go inside, at first it's so depressing. It's so much cheap crap. It's really horrifying. But if you go upstairs and all the way to the back and all the way to the right, where the stalls are the cheapest, you will actually find the Hmong and Zhao women selling your handicrafts. If you are bigger, taller, or heavier, the one place I've found that does charge a little bit more, but it's worth it to get something handmade, authentic, and in your size is the Indigo store at the Victoria Hotel. Probably 75-80% of the stuff I tried just doesn't fit me, even at just 5'6", which is pretty average for Western women. The minute you walk in the door, you know it's the real deal. There are 3 Hmong women doing their sewing right there. It is a very kind of fancy boutique atmosphere in Sapa Town proper. If you just want a comparison shop, a bunch of stuff. The main shopping streets are Khao Mai and Muang Hua. There's a lot of stuff on those streets that I recommend you do not buy. Number one, do not buy the fake North Face stuff. Of course, they make a lot of sales because it gets cold up here, but the stuff is awful quality. I guess if you're desperate and you're spending less than 20 bucks, okay. But a lot of the women that own these stores know a sucker when they see one, and they try to get you to spend 50 bucks on the most garbage fake North Face coat that doesn't keep you warm at all. Another style of store that you should avoid is the Vietnamese-owned ethnic style boutiques. You'll kind of be able to tell the difference after you've walked into a few. The prices are obviously higher because they're retailers. They're not selling direct. The interiors are very, very fancy, and they all have the same weird assortment. So it's not just local handmade tribal stuff. It's also random brands that are popular in Hanoi, luxury Vietnamese souvenir kind of stuff that just has nothing to do with Sapa, like pearl jewelry or jade jewelry. Another place I honestly don't recommend shopping, even though it has rave reviews online, is Indigo Cat. It's just the same stuff you can get everywhere else. Insanely overpriced. I think because they have good reviews on TripAdvisor. I don't get it. Don't go there. The couple stores worth visiting if you are on those streets are a silversmith who crafts traditional jewelry but makes the, I don't even know what they're called, the hooks, the part of an earring that goes through your earlobe. He makes them at a gauge appropriate for Western ears. A lot of the tribeswomen have amazing, intricate, traditionally hammered silver earrings, but the gauge is too thick for Western ears, and I'm not about to ruin my pretty little ears like that. Another store worth visiting down there is literally just called Hemp and Embroidery. There are 2 sisters, and they are legit. And one thing that's really cool about them is that because they're younger, they have a bit more of a Western sensibility. So they're selling the traditional stuff, but they're also selling sort of Western interpretations of the styles. So you see stuff that reminds me a little bit of like Scandi design or hippy dippy Santa Monica boutique. antiques, that kind of style. And they also have more just practical products for young people like tablet cases. So now let's talk about where to stay while you're in Sapa. The number one thing to consider is location. There are different styles of accommodation in different locations, and there are three main places that people stay. The first place is Sapa Town. The center of Sapa Town is the southwest corner near the town square. If you look at the map of Sapa Town, anything farther up than where I've marked on Fansipan Road is Sapa Town. Anything below that is really getting into Cat Village. In Sapa, a lot of people make the mistake of wanting to stay around the lake. First of all, the lake isn't terribly scenic. Secondly, the north side of the lake is kind of far from everything. You'll end up with a 10, 15, 20-minute walk to restaurants, convenience stores, setting off points for tours, etc. If you are staying in Sapa Town, my number one tip is to look for a place around that southwest corner of the lake or near the town square. My second tip, if you want to stay in Sapa Town proper, is to make sure you book a mountain view. Even though Sapa is famous for its mountains, that doesn't mean that all of the accommodations have views of any kind. The best site to see real pictures of accommodations is booking.com, and typically on booking.com you will see the rooms listed as having no view, city view, garden view, or mountain view. The mountain view rooms can cost as much as double, pay the money. City views can be hit or miss. Same thing with garden views. By garden view, they may mean a view into their parking lot with a plant or a view onto construction on an empty lot. Unless you plan on being out all day, every day you're here and are only crashing there once it's already dark at night, it is completely worth the money. Now in Sapa Town proper, you are close to the restaurants, the shopping, the tour companies, and you can get 3- and 4-star accommodations, meaning hotels that have laundry service, free breakfast with an actual menu, an elevator sometimes. That's really as fancy as things get around here. If you're not looking for that experience at all, if you're looking to go super rural, super rustic, super authentic, you may find yourself looking at listings in the Muanghua Valley. That's the valley beneath Sapa Town, which is on a hill, where there are a lot of villages of Hmong tribes. In this sort of accommodation, you are getting a rough and ready homestay. They're cheap. We're talking about $5 to $12 a night. And a lot of them have Wi-Fi and hot showers, actually, so that's really good. But the accommodations are minimal. Many times I've slept in an open or semi-open room on a futon with no sheets, just a bed cover underneath and a blanket on top and a mosquito net. For hiking, especially if you intend to arrange your Sapa trekking through a Hmong homestay, that's great. For meditation, it's wonderful. If you at any point expect to go into Sapa Town, don't do this, or split your trip up and stay in 2 different places, one homestay and one in Sapa Town proper, because from these homestays in the Muanghua Valley to Sapa Town proper is walking an hour and a half steep uphill hike, and in a grab cab, like $20. You're definitely not getting a deal staying in these places if you plan on going back and forth. One option that is sort of halfway between the homestay and the 3-star hotel is where I am presently, Cat Village. Cat Village is a completely contrived fake village halfway between Sapa Town proper and the Muanghua Valley, and there are cheaper hotel options and pricier homestay options here along Fansipan and Violet roads. Where I'm staying right now, as you can see, I have a private balcony, great views, king-size bed, but I don't have enough hot water for a full shower. I have to choose between my body or my hair. I don't have a free breakfast. Most of the time there's not fresh milk for coffee. It's condensed or black. And the people here are local yokels. It's musty, it's dusty, they smoke in the restaurant. Yeah. Price-wise, what are you looking for? If you want the most luxurious hotel room in Sapa proper, you could pay $150, but you can honestly get one of the nicest places available for $65 or $75 easily. If you get a room with a mountain view in a place with a good restaurant and laundry service for less than $40 in Sapa Town proper, you're doing really well. In Cat Village, where I am, you want to pay something between $15 and $25. Bargaining in Sapa Town proper isn't going to happen. Bargaining in Cat Village advantage may happen for you, but I've experienced a lot of nickel and diming when I try to bargain on hotel rooms. Like, I'm technically in this room, which is normally $21 a night, for $17 a night because I promised to stay here for 10 nights or more, but I no longer get the free breakfast. I'm getting charged daily for the use of a space heater that I think otherwise would have just been given to me as a hospitable gesture. You get it. From Cat Village to Sapa town, all Grab cabs have a door price of 80 to 100,000 Hong. That's between $3 and $5 depending on the exchange rate. Is it worth it to stay in a $17 place in Cat versus a $27 place in Sapa town proper? It depends on how often you're planning on going back and forth. In terms of booking accommodation, I do suggest that you book your hotel or homestay or whatever online. I've consistently been quoted higher prices in person than I see online. I think booking.com is the best site to look for pictures, and I think agoda.com usually has the lowest prices. But if you come across a place that interests you and look it up on Google Maps, most of them will have the nightly price on all the websites. So not just Agoda and Booking, but also hotels.com, Orbitz, etc. How to get to and from Sapa from Hanoi, which is where most people travel from. There are 3 options. There is the sleeper train, which takes 11 hours, and there are 3 levels of luxury to choose from. There's the sleeper bus, which takes 8 hours, and there are 2 levels of luxury to choose from. And there is the daytime van or bus, and again, there are 2 levels of luxury to choose from. Let's get some things out of the way first. Regardless of what the various companies advertise, their disappointing similarities affect your quality of travel far more than any differences they may have. Disappointing similarity number 1. The Wi-Fi never works. 9 times out of 10, no matter how much you pay, train, bus, or van, the Wi-Fi isn't working. Similarly, most of the buses, vans, trains promise chargers or at least USB chargers. They are actually only physically present on fewer than half, and they work only about half the time that they're present. So if you were thinking that you were willing to pay a lot more in order to work, don't bother. It's not going to happen. Disappointing similarity number 2. No matter which you choose, you're not going to sleep well. I've talked to a lot of travelers about how they got to and from Sapa, and even people who paid over $300 for the super luxurious 2-bed private cabin on the most expensive train didn't sleep well at all. Whether you have a quote-unquote real bed on a sleeper train, a semi-sleeper bed on a sleeper bus, or a super luxury recliner on a daytime bus or van, you are not going to rest well, so make your peace with that before you leave. Disappointing similarity number 3. This is a pretty gross one. The bathrooms are appalling. Again, whether you opt to pay a lot of money for a luxury cabin on a train, or whether you take the cheapest sleeper bus available, bathrooms are shared, and they are appallingly filthy. That's actually one benefit that the sleeper bus has over the train. At least the sleeper bus makes rest stops, so you can pay to use a clean bathroom. Now let's talk a little bit about the differences. The sleeper train, as I said, 3 levels of luxury. For between 20 and 25 bucks, you can get the very basic berth in a cabin with 4 beds. Depending on the train company you choose, the time you choose, its desirability, you're going to pay between 22 and 45-ish per person for that trip. If you want to upgrade, despite knowing that the odds are you will not sleep and not have Wi-Fi, you can pay between $75 and $150 per person for a private 2-bed cabin. If you're a baller, you can pay over $300 for a private cabin. You sleep on one bed, your luggage can sleep on the other. The reason I don't like the train is because the train terminus is in Laokai City, which is still an hour-and-a-half drive from Sapa. So when you get to Laokai City, there's nothing to do, and you have to wait for your prearranged transport or arrange transport when you get there. That's another hour, hour-and-a-half sitting in a transport van. Another transition where your luggage is getting tossed around. Why drag an 8-hour trip out to 11 hours? I'll pass, but it's up to you. The second option, the sleeper bus. If you get the cheapest sleeper bus available, you can pay between $10 and $18 depending on the season and the website you buy your ticket on. The hard sleeper, or the semi-sleeper as they're called, is a padded vinyl seat that's reclined to, I don't know, maybe 150, 160 degrees and has a sort of cubby hole for your feet. There are no privacy curtains. There are 3 rows of beds per bus, and they are bunk beds. So there's a lower and an upper level. The sleeper bus can drive directly into Sapa. So instead of taking 11 hours like the train plus van method, the sleeper bus takes 8 hours. Actually, it really takes 6.5 or 7 hours, but they usually arrive extremely early in the morning, so they let you sleep on the bus for an hour and a half before they kick you on the street to find your tour guide or a hotel. There is a more luxurious option for the sleeper bus that usually goes for $24 to $35, again, depending on where you buy your ticket. On the more luxurious sleeper buses, first of all, there are privacy curtains, which is nice. People do weird stuff at night on a dark bus. But perhaps more importantly, there are only 2 rows of beds, so the beds themselves are wider. They're still bunk beds though. They're still an upper and lower level. For reference, I am 5'6", 5'6 and a half, average build, and I feel like I'm about the biggest person that could be comfortable on the cheap option sleeper bus beds. Every time I've been on one, I have witnessed a lot of Western men tossing and turning, mumbling and complaining when they got out at the rest stops. These sleeper buses are made for Asian people. The average Vietnamese woman is 5 feet tall. It's another thing to keep in mind. That said, the beds on the train are not longer. No one sleeps well. The final option is a daytime transport, which is usually advertised as a luxury bus or a luxury van. The cheaper option is a bus with I think 36 or 38 seats. It has padded reclining seats. It goes direct Hanoi to Sapa and back. It takes less than 8 hours because you're not sleeping at the end of the trip for an hour and a half. So you can get to Sapa in 6.5 or 7 hours this way. That ticket usually costs $14, $18. The luxury van costs the same, $14 or $18, but instead of being in a bus, you are in a van. The seats are bigger, the seats are fluffier, the seats recline a little bit further. They're usually between 9 and I think 14 seats in a van. And this daytime mode of transport is often suggested for people who are bigger, people who are taller, people who are heavier, but I don't know. These aren't even semi-sleeper beds. The cheaper option is a lot like a 7-hour flight in economy plus, and the pricier option is a lot like a 7-hour flight in business class. They're not that comfy for that length of time, in my opinion. One thing that's overrated, I think, about the daytime transport is the view. You will experience so much scenery when you actually get to Sapa that you don't have to worry about wasting a day getting a view from a bus or van. One real benefit I don't hear anybody talking about is that the daytime transports are usually half empty. The sleeper buses and trains are packed, but the daytime vans, it's very possible that if you have a lot of luggage or delicate luggage, you will be able to carry a bunch of it onto the van into the passenger area for free without anybody saying anything because half the seats are empty. As for where you should buy your ticket, the only site you should buy your ticket if you're doing it by yourself is 12go.asia. 12go.asia has all of the reliable companies that have been in business forever and run transports all day, every day. And those are the prices everybody pays. You're not looking at a tourist price. Those are the same prices Vietnamese people pay. They also update availabilities quickly, so you can tell if you'll be able to leave on a certain day or time or not. Another benefit to 12go.asia is that they have pictures of the actual bus and train accommodations, so you can make a decision from there. If for some reason your Western credit card does not work on 12go.asia, my advice to you is to go directly to the bus or train company website, email them saying the time and the ticket that you want. They'll probably hit you back within 24 or 48 hours asking you to pay via PayPal. The last thing I want to say on this topic is don't buy a ticket through TripAdvisor, Klook.com, Booking.com. These are usually promoted as deals or sales. They're actually more expensive than what you'll find on 12go.asia. So that's that. I hope that this video answered all of your questions about enjoying Sapa, Vietnam. If you have any questions about specific recommendations or want to see more pictures from my travels, please check out my blog. It is linked in my description box below. And if you've been here and have any tips or favorites, please share them with the rest of us in the comments section. Last but not least, have a beautiful week, and I'll see you next time.